Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of Grilled of the Diaspora, and I'm your host, Nakaira G. And today's episode is titled Diaspora Wars are Cointelpro. Let's talk about it. Okay, so there has been a lot going on. Just to recap, y'all, what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about a few things. We need to get into this Essence Fest diaspora war thing. I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the tweet that Versace sent out about needing to look extremely African to become a supermodel. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Amar Ray and the backlash that she faced from using like a Confederate flag type of design, as well as, I guess, plagiarizing her album cover. So let's just get into it a little bit. So let's start with Amar Ray, because this is very not that serious. So recently Amar Ray dropped a new project called Black Star, and on the album cover she is featured as the star in Ghana's flag. And so shortly after she posted that, her announcement of her new album and the album cover, immediately after an artist, a designer, basically came out and said that she stole the concept, that they had conversations and all this stuff, and she never followed through. And it seems like she used his design concept without his knowledge. And so there was this whole back and forth. No shade, no tea. I don't really care. I'm sorry. I really kind of don't. I really more so want to talk about the Confederate flag situation. So apparently, I guess she had some posters or an outfit, and there was a design that was in the design of a Confederate flag, but instead of the Confederate flag colors, it was the Jamaican colors. And so, people definitely got into it with her, and I think that was a learning lesson. I don't really feel like that's something that's cancelable or whatever. I don't think it's really that deep. I more so think that there is an obvious disconnection of what Black Americans don't think is okay. And I noticed this a lot, that a lot of, and I'm not blaming Amar Ray for this. I don't want this to be directed towards her. I just think that I notice a lot how sometimes I notice how a lot of Ghanaians particularly reuse, or West Africans reuse Make America Great Again. And there's all of these Make Accra Great Again, Make Ghana Great Again, Make Cape Coast Great Again. I've literally seen these posters in Ghana, and I just notice how a lot of West Africans seem to just, I don't know the relationship between them and Republicans and conservatism outside of fake Christianity, but it is so annoying that I literally constantly see people reusing Confederate flags or Trump slogans and stuff like that, and reusing it or recycling it in a African way. And honestly, it's just not ever going to hit. It's never going to hit to me. I just feel who exactly is this message for? Who are you talking to? Because if I'm being honest, it's easy for somebody to see a symbol like that and go, oh, this is for conservative Jamaicans. That's what it will make you think. That's what I think. When I see people that wear Make Accra Great Again or Make Africa Great Again, I automatically feel oh, is this their way of saying African conservatism is what we are fighting for and what we are going for. That's what we support. Because once you use a political slogan, it's a political slogan. You can't Africanize your way out of that. It is a political slogan for a reason. So my thing is please stop using political slogans, and please stop using political memorabilia to Africanize whatever it is that you think that you're doing, because I'm just telling you it's not going to work. Anyways, let's talk about Essence Fest. So Essence Fest, obviously I did not go to Essence Fest or whatever, but I saw so many people talking about Essence Fest. And it's weird because I saw some people that were saying that Essence Fest was not boring. I saw people that were saying it was packed, it was a lot of people. I saw people giving a lot of praises to Essence Fest, but it seems that Essence Fest went viral for low attendance. And then somehow um, a diaspora war broke out online. People were saying that they felt that Essence Fest was losing attendance for a number of reasons. One of the reasons that I saw was that people claimed that Essence Fest is too African influenced, or it's too African and Caribbean influenced, which we're going to get into. But the point that I thought was the most important was that people were saying that for a few years now, Essence Fest has banned or has made it very difficult for local businesses to be a part of the experience. And I think that is more of the bigger story, because Essence Fest, from my understanding, ever since I was young, I always understood Essence Fest to be like the original Black festival where there are vendor booths, where all of the restaurants and bars in the community are all involved. Everywhere you go, even if it's a restaurant, you know, that's down the street, they still have some type of Essence Fest theme, or some they're partnered with the organization. And I think now, today, that is not the case. It seems as if Essence Fest is now just trying to make all of its own money and not distribute it within the community, and also making it difficult for other community businesses to even be a part of it. And I think that's the story. Now, obviously, that's not what's popular. What's being said is that the inclusivity of African cultures and Caribbean cultures is the problem. And again, this is why I just feel like diaspora wars are Cointelpro, because at the end of the day, that's just not true. I think that the more inclusive that it is becoming, the more attendance would happen. But that attendance can only happen if all of these African and Caribbean cultures are also inclusive of Black American cultures. And if the Black American culture, particularly the Creole culture, particularly the New Orleans culture, has to stay at the forefront, it can't be in the background. Essence Fest is inherently a New Orleans cultural festival. It's, in my opinion, Essence Festival is less about the overall Black culture, and it's actually about the upliftment of New Orleans, particularly. And New Orleans has a very particular Black history that I think needs to be respected and needs to be uplifted and preserved. And the reality is, right, where people started to bring out this information, that Essence Fest has recently been sold, and the people that it has been sold to are African. Um, Particularly, I believe, Kenyan. And so there are these assumptions that because of that, that is the reason why it has become so exclusive. And I would hate for that to be the reason. I would hate for the new ownership to be the people that are causing the disconnection with the local community. I would hate for that to be the reason, but that is what it sounds like. It sounds like whoever owns the organization now, I guess because they don't have any connection to the local community in New Orleans, they don't see the value in the structure of what's been going, of how it's been for over a couple decades. And so it seems like that's where the disconnect is happening. So I think that the argument is still valid, whoever is to blame. And I do think that there is something that has to be said about when other cultures, other Black cultures join in a very Black American cultural organization, what does that look like? And I just think that across the board, that's something that a lot of people have not been able to integrate well. You see what's going on in Ghana with Black Americans and Caribbean people going over to the country. It's not meshing well 100%. There's still so much disagreements, disconnections, disgruntlements. There's still animosity, tension. There's still all of these things that I just haven't seen done well. And so I think for the most part, this is just a situation that it takes a lot of learning. And I think that organizations like this need to be bringing in more cultural advisors instead of just investors and marketing people. That's just a idea.
I am Nail Egyptian, and I'm the owner of the Nail Egyptian Press-On Collection, and I'm originally from Compton, California. I started doing nails in high school, but I started doing press-on nails when I traveled to Ghana for the first time in 2013, which inspired me to make the Nail Egyptian Press-On Collection. The style and design behind every nail set is inspired by the queens and goddesses of ancient Africa. I love when my customers tell me they feel inspired and empowered when they wear the nails, and it makes me feel happy that I'm able to connect with people in my community and make them feel beautiful.
Okay, so lastly, let's get into Jay Versace. Okay, now this is kind of like a week or two old by now, and Jay Versace has like moved on. Okay, like he has moved on from this whole situation, but I do want to talk about this because I am working on an article right now about Vogue. And I thought it was really interesting that Jay Versace put out this tweet. So basically, Jay Versace put out a tweet saying, "Why does it seem like you have to look extremely African in order to become a supermodel?" And so I thought that that was very, I thought it was very telling of not just how he felt, but how a lot of people feel. And I saw so many people that was like, "Oh, I don't think that's what he meant. I think he meant something else." The reality is that whatever his intentions were, it did not hit who it needed to hit. And what my issue is with a lot of people is that a lot of times with Black people, especially Black creators, it really frustrates me that like sometimes people forget that they are operating in a very superficial industry. And you're complaining about privilege. Like at the end of the day of like regardless of how he felt, what he's complaining about is privileges that only so many people in the world get in general. We're not talking about education and scholarships right now. We're talking about who gets to become a supermodel. And so what bothered me with Jay Versace's tweet is that who he should be hitting is the white industrial complex, right? The white supremacy complex, right? The industries and the institutions like Vogue, who have been ran by Anna Wintour since many of you were born. And in Anna Wintour's 30 plus year run, she accomplished very much nothing for Black people and Black supermodels. Let's be very, very clear, right? And I thought that that was so interesting because it felt like he was punching at the air, but really he was punching himself and he was punching down on other Black men and women. Even if his intentions of what he was saying was, it feels like you have to look a certain type of way to be considered by modeling agencies, again, you cannot hit the people who benefit from the privilege. You have to hit the people who offer the privilege. White institutions offer that privilege to these supermodels, just like how white institutions offer privileges to you as a content creator. Just like how there are things that you as a content creator and as many content creators don't necessarily deserve, but you are given that because you have been approved by white society to be offered those things, because to be a content creator as well as to be a supermodel is a privilege, right? And so I just thought, like, for me, I think we all look African, right? Even though I'm told all the time by Africans that I don't look African, which I don't care, okay? I don't argue with that. It was the extremely part that made me uncomfortable because I was like, what do you mean by extremely? Like, what do you mean by extremely African, right? Because now that's why the South Sudanese girls felt hit. Because now when you say extremely African, do you mean extremely dark skinned? Do you mean extremely African features, which is also racist pseudoscience, right? Do you mean extremely 4C hair? Like, what does it mean to be extremely or look extremely African? But let me be clear about something. I'm not just saying that to Jay Versace, and I'm not just saying that to Black Americans. I also don't want to pretend as if African people do not say that to Black Americans, that we don't look African, because I lived in Ghana for 3 years, been visiting and living on and off in Ghana for 12 years. And every day, somebody that was a local of that country told me I didn't look like an African person at all. Okay? So I felt like I don't agree with what Jay Versace said, but I also want to like wake it up that unfortunately everybody on every side of the spectrum has said some ignorant stuff like this before. And I don't want to like make it seem like this is something that only Black Americans say. No, everybody says it. All of y'all have said it. I've heard it be said to myself. Everybody says it. Black Americans have told me I don't look Black American. I look this, this, and this. Africans have told me you don't look like an African. You look like everybody's to blame. Everybody's to blame. Okay, so everybody's ignorant. But my thing is with Jay Versace, like I said, whoever he was pointing at, whoever he was really angry at, even if he wasn't saying it from the standpoint of he feels like he's not getting certain opportunities because of how he looks, that's not the people who look extremely African's fault. That's not their fault. Because guess what? There was a time, like the past 40 years, where they weren't even offered an opportunity, right? Because there's also a side of the superficial supermodel industry that will say too much of Black representation is biracial. If you ask me, I would say too much of Black representation in the model industry is biracial. Too much of it is light skin. Too much of it is ambiguity, right? Too much of it is that. And so it's interesting that Jay Versace would say it's now, he feels it's different. And I think that that's because of the reality of people like me and him who are in the middle when it comes to skin complexion, right? Where because we're not light skinned, biracial, and we don't look ambiguous, right? But then we're also not as dark as like a South Sudanese person like Anouk Yai, right? There is this middle ground that we exist in, but you really have to have some type of like high racial self-esteem, because there is a world where now let's say this, do I believe that white agency owners and white people have a particular look that they go for every year when it comes to bringing in the new supermodels of the industry? Yes, I absolutely believe so. We all know that. Tyra Banks has said that, right? I was very lucky to be a part of this supermodel article in the Cut magazine. I did nails for Tyra Banks and Beverly Johnson, as well as Kimora Lee Simmons. Check out that. You can type in my name. You can type in Nakira Glasgow, the Cut magazine. The article will come up. Or you could type in Tyra Banks, Beverly Johnson, the Cut magazine, supermodel, whatever, and it will come up. And even in that article, those supermodels talk about what it was like to be a Black supermodel in the early 80s and 70s and things like that. And when you look at those models, Tyra Banks, Naomi Campbell, Iman, Beverly Johnson, they all had a very particular look, right? So there was a time where the girls who looked like Anouk Yai did not have the same opportunity as a Tyra Banks with light-skinned woman with hazel eyes, right? So I think that like there is a validity to what Jay Versace was saying, but I just don't think that that's something that you should be punching at those models for. You have to punch at the modeling agencies. You have to punch the people who are the cause of that thing, right? So that's it for now. I want to keep this episode very, very short. So until next time, guys.